In a hidden garden among the mountains lived a young man named Ren. He was known for his restlessness, always searching for answers in the noise of the world. The bustle of nearby villages, the voices of people, the constant sound of his own thoughts. He would often sit by the river, hoping to find peace in the murmur of the water, but something always unsettled him. One day, tired of his agitated mind, Ren went to visit an old monk who lived on top of a hill. It was said that this monk had found true peace, though he rarely spoke of it. When Ren arrived, he found the monk sitting in silence, surrounded by white flowers. "How do you find peace?" Ren asked, anxiety in his voice. The monk didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pointed to a flower in front of him. It was a simple flower, but its whiteness glowed under the soft light of the sunset. "Do you see this flower?" the monk asked. Ren nodded, studying the flower closely. "Yes, but what does it have to do with peace?" The monk smiled gently and said, "The flower makes no noise. It does not seek attention, nor does it complain about the wind that moves it. It is simply there, being what it is. Peace is not found in constant seeking, but in being. When you stop searching, you find calm." Ren sat beside the monk in silence, watching the flower. For the first time in a long while, his mind grew quiet. He felt the wind gently caress his face, the sun slowly setting behind the mountains, and the silence of the garden filling the space between his thoughts. Ren remained silent for a long while, watching the flower and letting the monk's words settle in his heart. The light of the sunset bathed everything around him, and the sound of the wind through the leaves seemed to sing a song of calm. In that moment, the monk broke the silence with a gentle question. "What do you see when you look at the flower, Ren?" Still absorbed in the stillness, Ren answered in a quiet voice. "I see a simple flower, asking for nothing. Its beauty doesn't need to be acknowledged. It's just there, peaceful." The monk nodded slowly, as if sharing a deep truth. Peace is like this flower. It doesn't seek to be understood or appreciated. It is only found when you let go of the desire to find it. True peace cannot be forced. It blossoms when you allow things to simply be. Ren reflected on these words. For years, he had sought answers in the words of others, in books, and in the advice of people who thought they knew what peace was. But he had never thought of peace as something that was simply there, waiting to be received effortlessly. As the sun began to set, Ren felt a deep sense of relaxation. The flower before him seemed to glow with a soft light, as if it were illuminating something within him. The monk slowly stood and walked toward a small nearby pond. "Come, Ren, let me show you something else." Ren followed in silence, not knowing what to expect, but with a growing sense of peace in his heart. The monk approached the pond and, with a slow and serene gesture, pointed to the still water. "Look at the reflection of the sky," he said softly. Ren stepped closer, watching the liquid mirror that showed the clouds floating gently, without hurry, as if time did not exist there. "What do you see in the water?" the monk asked, as the light of the moon began to reflect on the surface of the water. Ren looked closer. "I see the sky and the clouds, but I also see my own reflection." The monk smiled and explained, "The water reflects what is in front of it, but if we stir the water, everything becomes distorted. The mind is the same. When we are filled with thoughts and emotions, our mind becomes agitated, and we cannot see things clearly. Peace comes when we allow the mind to settle, like the water in this pond." Ren continued to gaze at the water, watching how the reflection of the sky and clouds remained serene as he remained still, not trying to change anything. The lesson was clear. Peace did not come from trying to control or understand everything around him. It came from letting go, from allowing things to be as they were. The monk added in a soft tone, "Remember, Ran, do not seek peace outside yourself. Like the reflection in the water, peace has always been there, waiting to be seen when your mind is calm." Ren sat beside the pond, letting the silence envelop him. The calm he felt was deep, as if the very air around him was filled with peace. That garden, the monk, the flower, the water, everything seemed to connect in a single sigh, a single breath. Ren stayed by the pond, watching the calm water, but now he felt something different. He was no longer just a spectator. He now felt that he was part of that same landscape, that same stillness. The monk's lessons had begun to settle deeply within him, as if the roots of a tree were spreading under the earth, absorbing the knowledge of stillness. The monk, seeing the serene expression on Ren's face, sat beside him. "Sometimes," he said in a soft voice, "we think peace is a place we must reach, a destination. But peace is not a place. It is a state of being. It is here and now, in this moment, in the simple act of breathing and being present." Run looked at him with eyes full of gratitude, feeling how the truth of those words began to illuminate his heart. "So I don't have to search for it?" he asked, curious. The monk shook his head. "The search itself is what takes us away from it. Peace cannot be found because it has never been lost. It is within you, waiting to be remembered. Every time you breathe, every time you listen to the silence of the world, peace is there." Ren closed his eyes and breathed deeply, letting the monk's words dissolve into his being. When he opened his eyes, he saw the same flower from the garden, the same flower he had observed before, but now something was different. It was no longer just another flower. It was a constant reminder that, like it, he too could be simple, calm, serene. The monk slowly stood up, as if time had no hurry. "It is time to rest, Ren. Tomorrow will be another day. But the important thing is that you remember this. Peace is not in the future nor in the past. It is here, now, in your breath, in the silence." Ren nodded wordlessly and followed the monk back to the small cabin where he would sleep that night. His mind was no longer filled with questions. He no longer felt the need to search anymore. He had found something far more valuable, the simple art of being at peace with the present moment. That night, when Ren lay in his bed, the stillness of the garden still resonated in his heart. The darkness outside the cabin was soft, like an embrace from nature itself, and the silence was profound, without interruptions. Yet, Ren did not feel emptiness in that silence. Rather, he felt that the silence was filling him, as if each breath connected him to the pulse of the world. He closed his eyes and let his thoughts flow, but this time without holding on to them. He didn't try to control or reject them. He simply watched them pass by, like clouds gently drifting across the sky. In that empty space, effortlessly, peace began to take shape within him. "Silence is the door," he recalled the monk's words. "And rest comes when you stop knocking on that door and let it open by itself." Ren sighed deeply and allowed himself to be enveloped by sleep. It was not a sleep that escaped from reality, but a sleep that arose from the very center of his being, filled with calm and serenity. In his dreams, the flower from the garden continued to bloom, and the water in the pond kept reflecting the sky, like a constant reminder that everything in the universe, including himself, was part of a perfect flow. As he slept, Ren understood that peace was not something that could be reached with effort. It was something that was simply experienced when one stopped and allowed life, just as it is, to gently slip into one's being. As they continued walking along the path, the monk pointed to some stones scattered along the way. Some were large, others small, but all seemed to rest effortlessly in their place, as if the path had placed them there for a reason. "Life is like this path," said the monk, his voice as soft as the breeze. Sometimes you encounter obstacles along the way, stones that seem big and imposing. But if you look at them calmly, you'll see that they are simply part of the path, not something that stops you. If you keep walking, you'll always find a clear way forward. The disciple looked at the stones, thinking about the difficult moments in his life, when challenges seemed enormous and made him feel trapped. But now, listening to the monk, he began to understand that those obstacles were not the end of the path, just part of it. When you let go of fear, the stones become an invitation to learn. If you stop resisting, the path will continue, always open, always moving forward. The monk continued as his steps guided him along the moonlit trail. The young man took a deep breath, savoring the tranquility of the moment. He realized that the difficulties that once overwhelmed him no longer seemed so big or unreachable. Each step brought him closer to the peace he had been seeking, as if the path itself was showing him that there was nothing to fear. "You don't need to search for a perfect path," said the monk, looking at the disciple with a gentle smile. "The perfect path is the one you walk with acceptance, without clinging or resisting. Every step is an opportunity to find peace, and peace is never far away." The sun was fully risen, painting the sky with soft shades of orange and pink. The monk invited Run to walk with him along the path that crossed the garden, surrounded by trees that seemed to whisper to the wind. They walked in silence, but it was not an empty silence. It was a silence full of meaning, as if every step they took was imbued with deep calm. Suddenly, the monk stopped and looked toward a large tree at the side of the path. "Do you see that tree?" he asked. "Do you know how long it has been there?" Run looked at the tree, its branches stretching toward the sky. "It must have been here for a long time," he said. "That's right," the monk replied. "But what's important is not how much time has passed, but how the tree simply is what it is. It doesn't strive to grow nor to be big or small. It simply follows its nature. The tree doesn't hurry, it doesn't compete with the other trees. It is at peace because it accepts its being." Ren looked at the tree, feeling a deep connection to it. "Is that what I must learn, monk? To accept my being as I am?" The monk nodded, his eyes shining with wisdom. "Yes, Ren. Peace comes when you stop fighting against your nature, when you accept what you are and what you have, just as it is, without expectations or judgments. You are like the tree, perfect in your simplicity." Ren stood still for a moment, contemplating the tree. Something inside him relaxed even more. For a long time he had sought to be different, better, more complete. But now he understood that there was no need to be anything other than himself. "Thank you, monk," he said in a calm voice. "I've learned that peace is not in what I do, but in how I am." The monk smiled, pleased. "Exactly, Ren. Peace is in your deepest being, beyond actions and thoughts. You just need to remember that it is already within you." The day went on, and the garden filled with the golden light of the sun. Ren and the monk sat in the same place where they had conversed the night before, under the tree that had accompanied them during their reflection. The air now seemed lighter, as if everything around them was breathing in harmony. Ren closed his eyes for a moment, recalling all the lessons he had received during his stay. The flower, the water, the tree, the silence. Everything was connected. Everything was part of one whole, a perfect flow that did not need to be understood, only experienced. The monk looked at Ren with deep serenity, as if he knew that his student had already reached the end of a long internal journey. "Remember, Ren," he said softly, "peace is not something that can be lost. It is always with you, like the breath you never stop taking, like the beating of your heart." Ren opened his eyes and looked at the monk with gratitude. "I now know that peace is not in the future or in the past. It is here, in this moment, In every breath, in every thought I let go. The monk nodded and slowly stood up. Now you may continue your path, but do not forget what you have learned here. Peace is not found in seeking it, but in living it. As long as you remind yourself to be present, silence and peace will accompany you. Ren stood up as well, his heart filled with deep calm. He knew his journey did not end here, but he no longer felt the need to rush. He had learned that life as it was enough. Peace was already within him, waiting to be lived. With a smile on his face, Ren thanked the monk and walked toward the gate of the garden. As he left, he glanced once more at the tree under which he had reflected, and saw in it a new understanding. He didn't have to do anything to be happy, just be, like the flower that opens to the sun effortlessly. And so, Ren continued his path, carrying with him the most important lesson. Peace is not something that can be sought, it is something found in the present, in being.